October 7th, 2011. We here on the spot. Got my co-host, Steven Thomspon, with me.
Untimely death of Steve Jobs.
Yes, indeed.
Icon, creative genius, industrial design, pop figure, co-founder with Steve Wozniak of Apple Computers.
Where do the Apple world go today?
Well, it's going to be interesting. We lost a unbelievable, transformative individual. And he is, as I said to someone, we've got two words, transformative and impact. We're all walking around with either iPhones, iPods, or iPads.
Yes.
We got one here in the show, right?
Yes. Well, MacBook Pros, Macs, everything.
He is responsible for so much of technology, the idea of transformation, the Macs.
Ironically, you know, he passed away one day after the presentation for what they thought, society thought would be the iPod 5,
right,
which turned out to be the iPhone.
Right.
Which turned out to be the iPhone 4S.
Right, not quite the 5. So really symbolic, you know, his passing and the idea that, you know, we're going to miss him. We really do. His visionary, uncompromising personality. Everybody has commented about the fact that he changed basically the landscape.
The music world.
The film, everything he touched. The idea that a computer can be so handy, so easy, so amazing to transform
mobile music.
Right. He's really the music industry.
The digital world.
So we wish him and his family are rest in peace.
Yes.
And the Apple family and the tech folk who will miss him surely.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's hope that they can keep up to where he was taking us. Keep us in that same path.
There you go. So we're going to step into the global landscape.
Okay.
We really have, right now we're in the midst of a major precarious situation in Europe. We usually haven't talked about Europe in some of the shows, but right now the European Union is sitting on a time bomb. Let me tell you what the story is. Basically, over a period of time, so many of the countries have overborrowed and they're at the point of default. How do we get that way, right?
Yes.
That's usually the issue is, where did the money go? Well, it all started on Wall Street.
It started on Wall Street. We have a lot of problems on Wall Street, but we're going to keep it on an international level.
International.
Let's keep it for there for right now.
So right now what happens is you look at those countries, whether it be Italy, Iceland, Germany, they were buying Wall Street's financial instruments. Now we all know what happened to those. They call it instruments of mass destruction.
Yes, indeed.
So what happens in these countries, starting with Iceland, they ran up major debts. And unfortunately, those banks could not survive. They were insolvent. Right now, they're dealing with one particular country, Greece, which basically is looking on default if they're insolvent right now. And the other EU countries, Great Britain, Germany, are trying to figure out, France, whether they should prop up their banks. So the question is, if in fact they can't, they're default, what does that do to America? You know, we really look at this country and we try to figure out, okay, the things that we do here, we're always arguing about them, but those effects, it's a domino effect. If in fact those countries fail, we got a problem.
So can you explain to the audience what role the derivatives, Lindsey Graham, is that Phil Graham
had
and his wife, deregulation.
All of the story comes together. Essentially, the short story is those derivatives were a bet. It's almost like an insurance, and it's a very touchy situation in what derivatives are. But for people who are not on Wall Street, it's an idea that you may put all of these different types of financial instruments in one area. The question is, the risk is very high. In the cases, a lot of people couldn't pay back what they said they could. And therefore, the government has to step in, nationalize. You saw that in the idea of when the government had to turn around with TARP funds. But in the global sense, they're doing the same thing. So you got the same thing that's going on with Germany and the bankers of France, the issue of Greece. The bankers of France and Germany are trying to say, do we build them or dig them out of this hole?
Tell me something, I have a question.
Right.
What's happening here in America, does that have a direct link, Wall Street, to what's going on overseas, where the overseas market is blaming it on America?
Well, to a certain extent. There's really, to be the country that everybody follows. Remember, our currency is the currency of record. Everything is denominated in dollars, even though you have other currencies.
Euro.
People use the dollar as a guide. So if there's not a confidence in the United States, we just went through this back and forth about our debt, and S&P and certain rating Moody's and things like that decide to lower our debt rating. That means across the globe, people say, you know what? We're not as confident in the United States. So it does affect them. So we have all of these things looking at a global financial system that literally is, if you light the match and it's gasoline, you know what you
It'll
get.
blow.
There you go.
It'll blow.
So that's the global perspective. We're going to keep you up. On the Spot is now giving you a real perspective on the global world and landscape.
It's very important
keep
on
that,
how we strategically explain
talk
it.
about that.
Keep it simple.
We're going to talk about that.
Make it
Constantly.
where our community will like watching the news and understanding what they're talking about without feeling lost.
There you go. So from the global, we're going to look at the national landscape. And last show, we really talked about what Obama had put forth in his jobs bill, $447 billion. Basically, he's looking at the fact that he wants to look at public works, tax cuts, federal aid, and he's now going to sit back and say, will the Democrats and the Republicans come together to pass the bill?
Well, the Republicans is not going to do anything.
Well,
they're in a position that they need to.
right.
Will they? They're basically coming up with every excuse in the world. We're going to filibuster this. They're trying to throw various things in the bill. Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid had a big thing on the floor on Thursday. It was comical. We're going to show that in a little while.
We're going to look at that, right. The party of no, right?
It's been the party of no.
Party of no. So American people suffering. Numbers came out. Unemployment did not change in a sense of going up or down.
103,000 jobs. Nothing's changed.
Still a 9% one.
But the Republicans and the Democrats first have to start out by showing what Mitch McConnell said when he said his sole job will be to make sure Obama is a one-term president, meaning we're going to do whatever it takes, even if it hurts the American people.
There you go.
We will crash your economy.
Right.
You will not have any jobs. They could care less about that. The name of this game is to make President Obama a one-term president, and they will do whatever it takes.
It's a sad statement, which we really have to look at what, now that the American people, and we're going to talk about some initiatives that's going on, because just recently, obviously, a number of younger people are in Wall Street. They have an idea that they occupy Wall Street. We'll get to that.
We're going to get to that. We're going to first start out, let's take a break, and we're going to show Mitch McConnell speaking on when he tells us that he wants to make President Obama one-term president. We're going to come back after a brief message from our sponsors. We'll talk about Occupy Wall Street.
All right.
Thank you.
Our top political priority over the next 2 years should be to deny President Obama a second term.
October 7th, 2011. We're back on the spot.
On the spot.
Occupied Wall Street.
Well, you know what? We're looking at this year was the Arab Spring. So we looked across the globe, Egypt, Bahrain, Tanzania. Almost so many people we can't even remember.
Yes.
But now we seem to be in our backyard. We broadcast from New York City, and Norm is always waking me up to go down to Wall Street.
Wall Street. Ted has been at Wall Street.
One of our correspondents is down there from day 2.
Ted, he's been living there.
He's unbelievable.
If you call Ted,
where you at?
We want you to cover this. We don't want you to be biased. Just talk to the people.
Park. This is what's going on. A very interesting idea. Maybe the young people looked out and said, you know what? We can do that here. Started out small, number 100 of folk in the park, down there saying, we got a problem. Now, some of the critique is that the message is not clear. The demands are not on the table. But you know what? I reminded somebody when Rosa Parks sat in the front of that bus.
Without a doubt.
It took a year. Of really boycotting and figuring out
a whole year.
Yeah. So movements don't start overnight.
No.
But in
they
pick up steam. So Wednesday, organized unions, came out in droves. There's an idea that there's anywhere from 15 to 30,000 folk, all the organized union, following the young people.
Yes, it's scary right now.
Very interesting.
They gave Ed Schultz the business down there. Bear in mind, Ed from MSNBC.
Liberal,
yes,
progressive.
Been speaking their issues for years now.
No doubt.
But they're so upset with corporate America and corporate greed, and MSNBC is owned by General Motors, and General Motors has made a lot of money.
It used to be General Electric.
General Electric, I'm sorry. General Electric has made a lot of money in this Iraq war, Afghanistan war.
And then moved to, they sold them to Comcast.
Yes.
So all of these corporate beings, or at least the issue from young folk and really folk that are aware, is that we saw Wall Street bailed out.
Yes.
But what happened? There was no trickle down.
The people never got bailed out.
People never got bailed out. So Main Street, lower street, upper street, doesn't matter where you're from, we're looking at Wall Street doesn't care.
Wall Street got a lot of profits.
A lot of profits. They went from zero, or really, of course, Lehman Brothers went out of business.
Yes.
Bear Stearns went out of business. But these companies now are back healthy. They got a lot of dollars on their books, their balance sheet. But what about American people? They need jobs. So the kids are, what we say, I don't mean that dismissive, but younger folk are saying that, you know what? We need to really take it to the streets. America, basically any movement in America has always been about taking it to the streets. So when we look far across the land at Egypt,
yes,
and we look at, you talked about
Tenement
Square. So we sometimes it's difficult to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
You know, I know when I wake up in the morning, it's tough to look in the mirror.
I know one thing, it's starting to come home, though.
There you go.
It's starting to come home.
Home.
I don't think the American people was ready for this.
They weren't.
Because now the same people on the right,
there you go,
they hyped up the Tea Party.
Tea Party.
It was the greatest thing because it was the people's movement.
Right.
All disrespecting Occupy Wall Street.
Well, it's kind of interesting because the Tea Party, funded by the Koch brothers.
What is the gentleman's name can't think of it. I'll give it to you in a second.
Well, the Koch brothers and really this artificial organic movement that was funded by some very powerful billionaires.
Yes.
We look at an organic movement definitely from the grassroots. Ted has told us, and he's a kind of on the spot correspondent, that they're down there, they're cooking stuff on the street and sleeping, and this is what you call grass movement, a grassroots movement.
The right don't want to hear it, and they don't want to hear it because the way the people are dressed, they want to continue to call them hippies and everything else.
All these different things.
But you it's like pay now or pay later. You're going to have to deal with this here.
The fact remains
700 people got arrested Saturday.
Coming across the Brooklyn Bridge.
700.
There you go.
Now, when the Tea Party at their highest moments, when they was outside, they didn't have 700 people there.
They get 50 people in a rally, and they think it's amazing.
It was amazing because Fox News carried it.
Well, that's the whole thing. So we didn't talk about the first 2 weeks. There was a blackout. So as opposed to independent media like On the Spot and folk that are progressive, Amy Goodman, Democracy Now,
without a doubt,
the idea that here were established, institutionalized corporate media ignoring kids.
They can't ignore it anymore.
They can't. Now they can't ignore it.
When you get 100 arrested one day, people screaming outside, crying.
There you go.
They sprayed by the police.
And you see the on the spots there. So what's running in the background is just a nice sampling of what's going on. So we're going to continue that story on the spot. You're going to see it. Really, we've covered it from the beginning. And
Ted's inside producing inside.
Right, but
he don't want to come out. He said I didn't get
right here.
He's been spending nights out there.
But a wonderful job in really being at what is history, and we're going to see this is going to be huge. This is going to, and it's popping out all across the country. They have occupy certain places. I think Cleveland, Chicago. People are talking about I'm going back to Florida. Really motivated, and they're going to do something. So we'll get back to that. We're also going to talk, I guess the issue now is, in the political vein, national, the GOP.
Herman Cain.
What? Sarah Palin?
Chris Christie.
Gone. Out of here.
Sarah Palin,
gone. So this is the party now, the Grand Old Party as it's called, the GOP. But it seems like they're stuck.
They're not stuck. Well, it's going to be positioning here.
Well, the whole issue now is you've got Mitt Romney, who is their quote-unquote the leader in the sense of people feeling that he may get the nomination. just last week or 2 weeks ago, you know, Rick Perry jumped into the race. Everybody thought that was it.
I'm going to hit you with something that you didn't want to talk about.
All right.
I'm going to hit you with something you didn't want to talk about.
There you go.
Will the GOP elect a black man?
Well, Herman Cain. Good question.
You didn't want to talk about that.
I guess it's interesting. We said we didn't want to talk about it. The issue with the GOP is they have a very paradoxical, or at least schizophrenic way. Can they deal with a black man, but the type of black man that they want?
He fits the mold.
Well, that's going to be interesting.
He fits the mold. He said what they want him to say.
He won the Florida straw poll.
Didn't he beat Rick Perry?
Rick Perry.
Yes.
So the question is, when you pointed out, you say it's a long road. Anything can happen to the nomination.
This is what we got, 14 months, 16
months, and then now clearly everybody was like, Chris Christie, he's the this and that, he's out of there. He can't deal. So,
let me tell you something. On any given day, you can say the wrong thing,
and that's it.
And it's over.
Rick Perry had a problem because he was going to his hunting lodge from his family for a number of years.
What's the name of the place?
Niggerhead. Niggerhead. That was it. So we didn't beep that out, but it's very hard for somebody to say that they went into a place and you are a governor or you're a representative and you see such a dismissive, disgusting terrorist type word, and it just sits there.
Yes.
You didn't think about it. Well, and I give credit to Herman Cain. He called him on the carpet. But let's see what happens. But we got to give you credit in a sense. We're going to have a long road. Yeah. Who's somebody from the back who may surprise us? What about Ron Paul?
Well, Ron has always had his loyal following.
Oh, he got a following you
and
wouldn't
let me
believe.
tell you something. Ron is going to pick up in one of these states.
Okay.
And at the end of it all,
surprise somebody.
It's going to surprise somebody.
Okay.
And it's going to change the landscape of everything that's going down.
Uh-oh.
Because Ron,
you're on camera now.
Yes, Ron has that following.
Okay.
Tell me you don't disagree.
I know. I got to give it to him. That following. The question is,
young
expanding. Can he get outside of his little kind of his group that's just kind of following him? But you never know. You're right. They may pull it off. Michelle Bachmann.
I think it's over for her.
Yeah, she doesn't seem. It's like you can't remove your foot from your mouth.
16 months, 14 months.
Right.
She'll say something radical and get back in it.
And maybe next week, because she says some stuff it's amazing.
It's a long game.
It's a long game.
This is long.
So you're saying this is like the Mets in the World Series?
What World Series?
Okay, that's
we're not gonna go.
We
there.
said a long game. That's it.
We're gonna end this here out.
We close it up for a little while.
Close this segment out. Before I just close it out, I'd like to say one thing.
What?
My man Hank done messed up and put his foot in his mouth by saying, "Are you ready for some football for real?" Hank is out of here for ESPN.
They said you can say anything you want, but not for ESPN.
No, you can't.
There you go.
We'll be right back after a brief message from our sponsors. We're back in On the Spot, October 7th, 2011. I got something to tell you about, brother. I've been getting calls from various groups that's talking about they're not getting the money that was allocated from the state budget, the on-time state budget.
New York State legislation has allocated funds to nonprofits and grants, and they do the valid and important work in the community on the ground.
Exactly.
So
I reached out to Dean Skello's office.
Okay.
I mean, he's the majority leader of the state senate, New York State. Reached out to Dean.
Right.
I spoke to Sally, spoke to somebody else, and I believe I wound up speaking to his press secretary, which is Scott. I don't have the last name off the top of my head.
Right.
Said we want to come out there and interview the senator on what's happening with the money.
Right.
So you start feeling like you're getting. When I spoke to him, I was traveling because they were supposed to call me back, and I'm driving. And Scott comes up with, "Well, can you give me a list of the people of the various groups that didn't get the money and what happened?" So I asked Scott. I said, "Well, Scott, here's my problem.
Right.
One, I just like to talk to the senator, but number two, did the groups, because this goes Republican, Democrat, Independent.
Right.
The money has been allocated since April.
Where's the distribution?
On time, what's going on?
Right.
There's people in state government that said they've never seen anything like that.
Okay.
Where we're coming up, a new budget coming up in another few months.
It's round the corner.
And I believe we got about $137 billion state budget.
Yeah.
And the groups don't have it. So we're reaching out to Dean. We're going to stay on top of this. Dean Skello, State Senator, Majority Leader.
That'll be an on-the-spot investigation.
And I think I'm going to have to go up there with the cameras and run in his office or run up to Albany and run in their office.
That's the power of independent media.
OTS, we're going to put him on the spot.
We're going to put him on the spot. That's what on the spot's about. So we're going to stay on that.
Yes, we want to find out. You know, these groups do a lot of very good work.
Right.
They stay on this youth services, domestic violence, all type of things.
Amazing, you know, not only, you know, feeding the poor and the hungry in our community.
Things that the state can't do.
Can't do. They reach out. So it's a valid, and now we're in a very, you know, no doubt a recession. So these things are needed. So we're going to follow up on it. That's a good one.
We're going to follow up on it. But part of switching that up, we have a crime problem.
New York, as we used to say growing up, they said that the block is hot.
Yes.
Well, it seems like New York is on fire.
Well, they keep telling us crime is down. When they tell us that, I believe that's just for the tourist area.
Well, you know what? You know, you're looking at the situation and you're seeing from Staten Island, a young child got shot in the head.
In the eye.
In the eye, yeah. So luckily, she is recuperating. But we just in Brooklyn, we had folks that were literally like 4 dead right on Marcus Garvey Boulevard, places where the people around. These are children coming home.
About 3 weeks ago, yes, I think we had about 8 people got shot.
Right.
During the Labor Day around that time.
And then you get a live feed of anything that's coming out. And it's something one night you just had to literally go to gunshots that were around the way, so to speak.
Police is shooting people.
So we got a real issue now. The issue is now, what does the clergy, elected, you know, officials come together to come up with a distinct program to look at what's going on in our communities?
Well,
this is a serious problem.
I don't know. The clergy hasn't been involved in things since borderline the civil rights era.
Well, it's true.
This is a new era of clergy.
Yeah.
Just put more money in the plate.
Well, you're getting controversial there, but you're not wrong, because in the instance that we're saying is, what is the quality of life, whether it be your religious life or your day-to-day life. So we can't, I always go to the thing is, you say that you're a concerned parent, and you can think about that your child, you can't watch your child all the time, but they walk the streets, and these guys are shooting gals. You know, a bullet doesn't have any eyes. It doesn't care.
My mentality has changed. You know, I work law enforcement, been in corrections for 22 years.
Right.
And I have changed.
You've changed in the beginning.
When I remember when I first started the job and I went through the prisons, went through the jails, and you saw 95, 97% black and Hispanic, and it was like, yo, this is our people here.
Of course. But
fast forward,
21
years later, 22 years later, I could care less.
What? You put her on the...
Well, I could care less.
This is the issue.
I'm tired of them.
You're tired of that.
Listen to me. I want you to hear this.
Okay,
I want everybody to hear this. Listen at this here. Enough is enough. We've made excuses. I hear intelligent radio of color and everybody else. They're now changed their mindset of where they used to say they always, well, we don't have the jobs. We don't. We understand we don't have jobs, and that's a big problem in our community, but I'm tired of making excuses.
There you go.
This is a new young generation where all they want to do is say, I was putting in work.
Okay.
I'm putting in work.
I'm putting in work.
I'm busting my gun.
Okay.
They have no value for life. They don't care.
Out.
You shooting the old lady. You shooting the people in his wheelchair.
A grandmother.
The little kid, 2 years old, got shot in the eye.
Well, see, now this is our biggest issue now. We're going to, and I think On the Spot really is going to develop a consistent conversation about this. Really looking at, in the community, our situation.
Gun violence.
Gun violence.
Gun violence. When do we say we have a lost generation?
Right.
We can make every excuse for whatever we want to. Yes, the jobs is not there. And unemployment in our community is about 20%.
Easily.
While they talk about national is 9.1, and this is a major problem. Where you don't talk about the black community is 20%.
So it goes back to, if you have what we could call a respected positions, we gotta take and claim that clergy, elected political officials, very important people in our community, they have to step up to the plate.
You know what I say?
What?
Build more jails. They gotta go. Enough is enough. Listen to me.
Norm is opening the door
enough is enough.
Build more.
I actually call
that's deep.
Execution. And I don't mean in a literal point.
But the idea
enough is
that,
let's stop making excuses for
okay,
these people.
so
they gotta go.
Interestingly enough,
They gotta go. We gotta put them someplace.
You and President Obama, is that the same line as stop complaining?
President Obama, but that's a different story.
That's a different story.
He might lose half of the support just for that crap he said.
Yeah, right there.
But
I tend to disagree up to a point.
Oh.
I do believe that the environment of making sure that there are jobs does create a very serious situation.
Really? When the young kids, they don't care. This is blood, Crips, and everything. This is what they care about.
So
they don't even want to. It's not even about money for them.
They don't even. It's just
they're not. And hustling years ago, they was hustling to try to make some money.
That's true.
These kids is talking about game colors. And they could care less
about that.
And guess what? My job is this here:
to
protect the good kids. We don't do enough talking about the good kids.
We have to.
My son is in grad school, and one of these kids, if he stepped on his sneakers, and he's harmless.
Right.
But one of these kids, if he stepped on his sneakers, they'll kill him.
So we have to look
because they
at
got
that.
so much inner rage in them, and they got access to a firearm.
This is true. So
they have no value for life. So I'm at a point. Enough is enough. We got too many good kids doing positive things that's never talked about.
And we really do have to focus on that.
Yes,
we do.
We got kids going to school doing the right thing, and guess what? All we talk about is which hip hop guy got out of jail, so we can give him an award. So he could go. So he could go on award shows because he came. They get awards for coming in our community. It's
crazy.
How do you explain that? How do they get awards for coming out of jail?
So we go on the spot's got to have a specific show that we're going to do on firearms and the whole issue of the industry. What's going on? How are these guns getting in our community at the level that they are?
And the violence in our community.
It's causing.
We might have to do a town hall.
I think we know that'll
be a town hall on the violence in our community and community policing. Community policing.
Invite some of the political officials that we're going to put on the spot.
Yes.
So
until next week. On the spot.
We'll be back. I'm Steve Thompson.
Norman Graham. We're out.